नहीं आती थी,
दूर चली जाती थी,
बातें बनाती थी,
कितना जलाती थी,
बातें बनाती थी,
कितना जलाती थी,
तेवर दिखाती थी,
इसको सताती थी,
इसको सताती थी, इसको सताती थी। बोल राधा बोल, तूने ये क्या किया? बोल राधा बोल, तूने ये क्या किया? बोल राधा बोल, तूने ये क्या किया?
अपने किशन को, अपने किशन को, अपने किशन को दिल दे दिया।
बोल राधा बोल, बोल बोल बोल, बोल राधा बोल, तूने ये क्या किया? बोल राधा बोल, तूने ये क्या किया? अनहोनी को होनी करके दिखाया, मेरी बेचैनी को तूने मिटाया। अनहोनी को होनी करके दिखाया, मेरी बेचैनी को तूने मिटाया।
बेचैन तूने किया इतना ज्यादा, तेरी दीवानी बनी तेरी राधा।
मैं हाल अपना तुझे क्या सुनाऊं, बिन तेरे लागे न मोरा जिया। बोल राधा बोल, बोल राधा बोल, तूने ये क्या किया? बोल राधा बोल, तूने ये क्या किया?
अपने किशन को, अपने किशन को, अपने किशन को दिल दे दिया।
बोल राधा बोल, तूने ये क्या किया? बोल राधा बोल, तूने ये क्या किया? राधा बोल तूने ये क्या किया, बोल राधा बोल तूने ये क्या किया। सर की कसम लूं, आजा सनम तेरे सर की कसम लूं, तेरा बनूं अब मैं जब भी जन्म लूं।
अब नई रिश्ता टूटे,
अब नए दामन छूटे, अब नए रिश्ता टूटे,
अब नए दामन छूटे।
सांसें चलेंगी जब तक हमारी, बिछड़ेंगे ना अब हम साथिया। बोल राधा बोल, बोल बोल बोल, बोल राधा बोल तूने ये क्या किया, बोल राधा बोल तूने ये क्या किया।
अपने किशन को, अपने किशन को, अपने किशन को दिल दे दिया।
बोल राधा बोल, बोल बोल बोल, बोल राधा बोल, बोल बोल बोल। मेरे दिल की गलियों में, मेरे दिल की गलियों में कब से तू आबाद है। मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा, मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है, मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है।
सदियों पहले तू ही था, सदियों पहले तू ही था, तू ही सदियों के बाद है। मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा, मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है, मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है।
मेरे दिल की गलियों में कब से तू आबाद है। मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा, मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है, मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है। भूली बिसरी यादों से एक तस्वीर बनाई है, भूली बिसरी यादों से एक तस्वीर बनाई है। गुजरा हुआ जमाना है, लंबी बड़ी जुदाई है।
दिल में तेरी याद है, मेरे होठों पे फरियाद है। मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है, हाँ मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है। हम एक दूजे के होंगे, ये कब मेरे सजन होगा। हम एक दूजे के होंगे, ये कब मेरे सजन होगा।
हम 100 बार मिले बिछड़े, अब की बार मिलन होगा।
तेरा मेरा प्यार अमर है, क्या ये तुझको याद है।
मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है।
वो मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है। तोड़ के सारी दीवारें इस दुनिया की रस्मों की, तोड़ के सारी दीवारें इस दुनिया की रस्मों की।
झूम के वापस आई है ये रुतबा दो कसमों की। टूट गया गम का पिंजरा, टूट गया गम का पिंजरा, पंछी अब आजाद है।
हाँ मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है। वो मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है।
मेरे दिल की गलियों में कब से तू आबाद है।
सदियों पहले तू ही था, तू ही सदियों के बाद है।
ओ मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा
वो मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है।
ओ मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है।
वो मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा
ओ मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा ओ मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है। ओ मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा याद है।
तुझे कबूल, इस बात का गवाह खुदा, खुदा गवाह, खुदा गवाह। तू मुझे कबूल, मैं तुझे कबूल, इस बात का गवाह खुदा, खुदा गवाह, खुदा गवाह, खुदा गवाह।
वही 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 तेरे मेरे प्यार की, वही वही तेरे मेरे प्यार की, तेरे मेरे प्यार की, वही वही तेरे मेरे प्यार की, इस बारात का गवाह खुदा, खुदा गवाह, खुदा गवाह, खुदा गवाह।
हो कोई गुलाम चाहे बादशाह, इश्क के बगैर जिंदगी गुनाह। हो कोई गुलाम चाहे बादशाह, इश्क के बगैर जिंदगी गुनाह।
बस ये सोच कर मैंने जान दी, वही वही बस ये सोच कर मैंने जान दी, यानी दिल दिया गवाह खुदा, खुदा गवाह, खुदा गवाह।
तू मुझे कबूल, मैं तुझे कबूल,
तू मुझे कबूल, मैं तुझे कबूल। आईना हूँ मैं, न तोड़ना मुझे, तोड़ना मगर न छोड़ना मुझे। आईना हूँ मैं, न तोड़ना मुझे, तोड़ना मगर न छोड़ना मुझे।
कहना था यही मेरी जान मुझे, वल वल कहना था यही मेरी जान मुझे, तूने कह दिया गवाह खुदा, खुदा गवाह, खुदा गवाह।
वही 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 तू मुझे कबूल, मैं तुझे कबूल।
तू मुझे कबूल, मैं तुझे कबूल।
हाँ
खुदा गवाह, खुदा गवाह।
तेरे मेरे प्यार की गई वही, तेरे मेरे प्यार की, तेरे मेरे प्यार की गई वही, तेरे मेरे प्यार की। इस बारात का गवाह खुदा, खुदा गवाह, खुदा गवाह,
खुदा गवाह, खुदा गवाह।
बोले मेरा कंगना तेरे बिन सजना नींद नहीं आती। बोले मेरा कंगना तेरे बिन सजना नींद नहीं आती। होके जुदा मुझसे तुझे क्या चैन आता है।
दिन रात तड़पता हूँ, मिलने को तरसता हूँ। दिन रात तड़पता हूँ, मिलने को तरसता हूँ।
बोले मेरा कंगना तेरे बिन सजना नींद नहीं आती। बोले मेरा कंगना तेरे बिन सजना नींद नहीं आती। होके जुदा मुझसे तुझे क्या चैन आता है।
दिन रात तड़पता हूँ, मिलने को तरसता हूँ। दिन रात तड़पता हूँ, मिलने को तरसता हूँ।
तुझसे मिली मैं दीवानी बनी।
तू मेरे सपनों की रानी बनी।
तुझसे मिली मैं दीवानी बनी।
तू मेरे सपनों की रानी बनी।
आए सनम प्यार करने के दिन।
हाँ, पलकों तले जीने मरने के दिन।
छाने लगा प्रीत का अब नशा।
दुनिया की रस्में, दुनिया की कसमें तोड़ के आ जाना। दुनिया की रस्में, दुनिया की कसमें तोड़ के आ जाना। क्या दूर जाके दिल तेरा मुझे भूल जाता है।
तेरी याद सताती है, मुझे पास बुलाती है। तेरी याद सताती है, मुझे पास बुलाती है।
चेहरे से अब आंख हटती नहीं।
तेरे बिना रात कटती नहीं।
चेहरे से अब आंख हटती नहीं।
तेरे बिना रात कटती नहीं।
कोई भी जाने न हालत मेरी।
पागल बना
रहता हूँ, हर दर्द में सहता हूँ, बेताब सा रहता हूँ, हर दर्द में सहता हूँ।
बोले मेरा कंगना तेरे बिन सजना नींद नहीं आती। बोले मेरा कंगना तेरे बिन सजना नींद नहीं आती। होके जुदा मुझसे तुझे क्या चैन आता है।
दिन रात तड़पता हूँ, मिलने को तरसता हूँ, दिन रात तड़पता हूँ, मिलने को तरसता हूँ।
मुझसे मोहब्बत का इजहार करता। मुझसे मोहब्बत का इजहार करता। मुझसे मोहब्बत का इजहार करता। काश कोई लड़का मुझे प्यार करता। काश कोई लड़का मुझे प्यार करता।
मुझसे मोहब्बत का इजहार करती, मुझसे मोहब्बत का इजहार करती। काश कोई लड़की मुझे प्यार करती, काश कोई लड़की मुझे प्यार करती।
मेरी मांग में चांद तारे सजाता। जो मैं रूठ जाती मुझे वो मनाता। मेरी मांग में चांद तारे सजाता। जो मैं रूठ जाती मुझे वो मनाता। हालत मेरी वो जानता। धड़कन मेरी पहचानता। अपनी भी चाहत का इकरार करता। अपनी भी चाहत का इकरार करता। काश कोई लड़का मुझे प्यार करता। काश कोई लड़का मुझे प्यार करता।
मुझसे मोहब्बत का इजहार करती, मुझसे मोहब्बत का इजहार करती। काश कोई लड़की मुझे प्यार करती, काश कोई लड़की मुझे प्यार करती। वो बेचैन होती, मैं बेताब होता, निगाहों में उसकी मेरा ख्वाब होता। बेचैन होती, मैं बेताब होता, निगाहों में उसकी मेरा ख्वाब होता। शर्मा के वो लगती गले, रखता उसे पलकों तले, चोरी चोरी वो मेरा दीदार करती, चोरी चोरी वो मेरा दीदार करती। काश कोई लड़की मुझे प्यार करती, काश कोई लड़की मुझे प्यार करती।
मुझसे मोहब्बत का इज़हार करता, मुझसे मोहब्बत का इज़हार करता। काश कोई लड़का मुझे प्यार करता, काश कोई लड़का मुझे प्यार करता।
छोड़ के
तू ना जा मेरे बादशाह, एक वादे के लिए एक वादा तोड़ के। खुदा का तुझे वास्ता लौट कर आना तेरा, देखूंगी मैं रास्ता। खुदा का तुझे वास्ता लौट कर आना तेरा, देखूंगी मैं रास्ता।
ये वादा है मेरा, ये वादा है मेरा, मैं अगर मर भी गया तो भी वापस आऊंगा।
हो ना जा मेरे बादशाह, एक वादे के लिए एक वादा तोड़ के। तू ना जा मेरे बादशाह, मार ना डाले कहीं ये तेरी फुर्सत मुझे। रे ना जा मेरे बादशाह, मार ना डाले कहीं ये तेरी फुर्सत मुझे।
मैं वापस आऊंगा, मैं वापस आऊंगा, ये मेरा वादा रहा, हंस के कर रुखसत मुझे।
हाँ मेरे महबूब आ जाने से पहले तुझे मैं जी भर के देख लूं। हाँ मेरे महबूब आ जाने से पहले तुझे मैं जी भर के देख लूं।
तेरी तस्वीर में चाहूं जब आंखें जरा बंद करके देख लूं।
तू ना जा मेरे बाद
उधर तू ही नजर आए। ओ नजर जिधर जिधर जाए उधर तू ही नजर आए। ये मेरे इश्क की इंतहा है सनम, ये मेरे इश्क की इंतहा है सनम।
हो जिया जाए बिना तेरे अब नहीं जिया जाए। हो जिया जाए बिना तेरे अब नहीं जिया जाए। ये मेरे इश्क की इंतहा है सनम, ये मेरे इश्क की इंतहा है सनम।
ओ नजर जिधर जिधर जाए उधर तू ही नजर आए।
हो जिया जाए बिना तेरे अब नहीं जिया जाए। दर्द जिगर में होता है,
और जरा होने दे।
खोने लगी मैं ख्वाबों में,
मुझको जरा जुल्फ तले सोने दे।
प्यार की राह में बहके कदम।
नजर जिधर जिधर जाए उधर तू ही नजर आए।
हो जिया जाए बिना तेरे अब नहीं जिया जाए। ये मेरे इश्क की इंतहा है सनम,
ये मेरे इश्क की इंतहा है सनम। नजर जिधर जिधर जाए उधर तू ही नजर
हो
आए।
जिया जाए बिना तेरे अब नहीं जिया जाए।
बोल तेरा प्यार कैसा है,
देख जरा देख मेरी आँखों में,
कौन तेरे पास रहता है।
तू है सुबह शाम मेरी सांसों में।
जिंदगी भर कभी ना जुदा होंगे हम।
हो जिया जाए बिना तेरे अब नहीं जिया जाए।
ओ नजर जिधर जिधर जाए उधर तू ही नजर आए। ये मेरे इश्क की इंतहा है सनम,
ये मेरे इश्क की इंतहा है सनम।
ओ नजर जिधर जिधर जाए उधर तू ही नजर आए।
हो जिया जाए बिना तेरे अब नहीं जिया जाए।
ये मेरे इश्क की इंतहा है सनम,
ये मेरे इश्क की इंतहा है सनम।
ओ नजर जिधर जिधर जाए उधर तू ही नजर आए।
हो जिया जाए बिना तेरे अब नहीं जिया जाए।
बुलबुल चहकी फूल खिले, आने वाले सब आए हैं, आने वाले सब आए हैं, लेकिन तुम कब आओगे, लेकिन तुम कब आओगे। सावन आया बादल छाए, बुलबुल चहकी फूल खिले। सावन आया बादल छाए, बुलबुल चहकी फूल खिले। ओ मेरी जिंद मेरी ये मैं दिल हार गया, ओ मेरी जिंद मेरी ये मैं दिल हार गया। घर में जो तुम्हारे पहली बार गया, जल्दी आऊंगा मैं लेके डोली और बारात, बना के दुल्हन ले जाऊंगा तुमको अपने साथ। साजन के घर आने का तुम कर लेना इंतजारो।
सावन आया बादल छाए, बुलबुल चहकी फूल खिले।
सावन आया बादल छाए, बुलबुल चहकी फूल खिले।
आने वाले सब आए हैं,
आने वाले सब आए हैं,
लेकिन तुम कब आओगे, लेकिन तुम कब आओगे।
लेकिन तुम कब आओगे, लेकिन तुम कब आओगे।
This is Lux Mind Tactics, where the wealth mindset meets luxury living.
For 16 years, the title of world's richest person was basically an American affair, passed between icons like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. It felt like their dynasty was unbreakable, a permanent fixture in the global consciousness. Then, in 2010, the story completely changed. Financial reporters, market analysts, and the public were floored by a new name at the top of the list. It wasn't a tech genius from Seattle or a legendary investor from Omaha. It was Carlos Slim Helú, an engineer from Mexico City. This announcement sent a shockwave through the financial world. This wasn't just a new number one. It was a fundamental shift in the global landscape of wealth. For the very first time, a citizen of a developing nation had climbed to the absolute peak of the financial world. His fortune, pegged at a staggering $53.5 billion at the time, had just eclipsed that of Bill Gates. The question on everyone's mind was simple, yet profound. How? How did a man from a country so often battered by economic crises and instability build an empire so vast and profitable that it dwarfed all others? The answer isn't a single dazzling invention or some trendy, world-changing tech startup. It's a far more intricate and compelling story built over decades, a slow, methodical, and relentless campaign of buying and consolidating. It's a strategy born not in a sleek, modern boardroom, but at home with simple, powerful lessons from his father. It was a mindset honed in the fires of economic collapse and then perfected with one of the most brilliant and audacious business deals in modern history. This is the story of how a long-term vision, an unshakable faith in his nation, and an engineer's mastery of numbers allowed one man to effectively take control of an entire nation's economy and, in the process, become the richest man in the world. It all starts with a simple, powerful image: a young boy, barely a teenager, hunched over a small, unassuming ledger. In its pages, he meticulously documents the flow of his small universe of money. Every peso he received, every peso he spent, every tiny profit earned from selling candy to his family, it was all recorded with the precision of a seasoned accountant. This wasn't just some fleeting childhood hobby, it was his real education. This was the silent, disciplined construction of a foundation that would one day support a fortune approaching $100 billion. While other kids were outside playing, lost in the carefree world of youth, Carlos Slim was quietly learning the language of money, a language taught to him by the single greatest influence in his life, his father. To truly understand the financial titan Carlos Slim would become, you first have to understand the profound and lasting lessons of Julian Slim Haddad. Julian Slim wasn't born in Mexico. He was an immigrant arriving from Lebanon in 1902 as a 14-year-old boy named Khalil Salim Haddad Aglamaz. He was escaping not poverty, but the mandatory military service of the crumbling Ottoman Empire, sent abroad by a mother who would rather see her son exiled than lost to a meaningless war. Like so many immigrants who built new lives in new worlds, he came with little more than a powerful drive to succeed and a formidable work ethic. He started small. In 1911, alongside his brother, he opened a dry goods store in the heart of Mexico City called La Estrella de Oriente, the Star of the Orient. While that little shop was a world away from the global telecom empires his son would one day command, it was right there, among bolts of fabric and sacks of grain, that the core philosophy of the Slim dynasty was forged. Julian possessed an unwavering, almost radical faith in Mexico. Just as his business was finding its footing, the country descended into the chaos of the Mexican Revolution. It was a violent, unstable decade that began in 1910, sending shockwaves of fear through the capital. Wealthy families and foreign business owners packed their bags, liquidated their assets, and fled. Capital poured out of the country as if from a sinking ship, and property values collapsed under the weight of uncertainty. But Julian saw something else entirely. Where others saw chaos, he saw a historic opportunity. He believed the turmoil was temporary, a violent storm that would eventually pass. He understood that the country's real value, its land, its infrastructure, and its people, was permanent. So he did the exact opposite of everyone else. He bought. He doubled down on Mexico. snapping up prime real estate in Mexico City's commercial districts for a fraction of what it was worth just a few years earlier. It was a massive contrarian bet, and it paid off beautifully, making him a wealthy man. This single powerful idea, that crisis equals opportunity and the time to invest is when everyone else is consumed by fear, became his central lesson. He passed this wisdom down to all 6 of his children, but it landed most profoundly with his 5th child, Carlos. From a very young age, Carlos was brought into the world of business. His father gave him that famous ledger and taught him not just how to save, but how to think like an owner, how to read a balance sheet, analyze income statements, and track expenses. It was a real-world MBA taught at the dinner table, a financial education more valuable than any formal degree. And the lessons were intensely practical. By age 11, Carlos Slim was already investing his own savings. At 12, he made his first real stock purchase, buying shares in a Mexican bank. Just think about that. At an age when most of us are consumed with schoolyard games and childhood fantasies, Carlos was poring over financial reports. He was learning how to read the numbers, to look past the market's emotional noise and spot the real underlying value of an asset. It was a skill that would come to define his entire career. He went on to study civil engineering at university, a discipline that only sharpened his analytical mind. He was so gifted with numbers that he simultaneously taught algebra and linear programming at the university while he was still a student. Then, tragedy struck. When Carlos was just 13 years old, his father died suddenly. The personal loss was immense, but the intellectual inheritance was already burned into his mind. The principles of financial discipline, long-term vision, and most importantly, the courage to buy valuable assets when everyone else is panicking, that was his father's true legacy. Julian Slim left his family a sizable fortune, but he gave Carlos something far more valuable, a blueprint for building wealth on a scale that even he could have never possibly dreamed of. Through the 1960s and 70s, Carlos Slim was playing the long game. Armed with his engineering degree and his father's financial playbook, he made no attempt to become a flamboyant tycoon overnight. His approach was patient, disciplined, and almost invisible to the outside world. He began his career as a stockbroker, a position that gave him a front-row seat to the market's daily rhythms and allowed him to study hundreds of companies up close, dissecting their financials and identifying their hidden strengths and weaknesses. He wasn't just trading stocks for quick profits, he was hunting for the same kind of deep-value deals his father had found decades earlier, businesses that were fundamentally solid but were undervalued, inefficiently managed, or simply caught in a temporary economic downturn. Using the profits from his brokerage and his inheritance, he began his quiet campaign of accumulation. He started buying up small and medium-sized companies across a diverse range of industries, a soft drink bottler, a printing company, prime real estate. In 1980, he consolidated these disparate businesses into a single powerful holding company, Grupo Carso. The name itself was a tribute to the most important partnership in his life, a combination of his own name, Carlos, and that of his late wife, Sumaya Domit. Grupo Carso became his primary weapon, a corporate spider at the center of a rapidly growing web of businesses in construction, mining, retail, and manufacturing. Then, in 1982, the moment he had been preparing for his whole life arrived. It was a crisis of epic proportions. Mexico, buried in foreign debt and heavily dependent on oil, was crippled when global oil prices crashed. The government defaulted on its debt, the peso's value was practically wiped out overnight, and hyperinflation sent the economy into a death spiral. For the country, it was an economic apocalypse. For Carlos Slim, it was the sale of the century. Just as his father had done during the revolution, Slim stood his ground with absolute conviction, while capital fled the country in a tidal wave of panic. He looked past the headlines, past the fear and chaos, and saw the underlying reality. The factories were still standing, the brands still had name recognition, and the workers still had their skills. The real, tangible value of these companies hadn't vanished. Their stock prices had just been crushed by fear. He went on a legendary shopping spree, buying up huge chunks of the Mexican economy for pennies on the dollar. He acquired the Mexican arms of major international brands like General Tire and Reynolds Aluminum, alongside hotel chains, insurance firms, and dozens of other businesses. His most famous acquisition from this era was Sanborns, a beloved but failing chain of department stores and restaurants. Sanborns was a Mexican institution, a place of deep cultural significance, but it was bleeding money and on the verge of collapse. Slim bought it, but instead of stripping it for parts, he dove into the details, applying that same rigorous number-crunching analysis he learned as a boy with his ledger. He meticulously streamlined operations, re-engineered the inventory system, and transformed the dying relic into a profitable and vibrant cornerstone of his expanding empire. By the end of the 1980s, Carlos Slim was one of the most powerful and wealthy men in Mexico, even if he remained relatively unknown to the international community. He had proven his father's core theory on a massive scale. He bought when there was blood in the streets and emerged with a powerful, diversified conglomerate. But all of this was just a dress rehearsal. It was all training for the main event, the one deal that would catapult him from national heavyweight to the wealthiest man on the planet. By 1990, Mexico was undergoing a seismic shift. The government, embracing a new era of privatization, was selling off its massive state-owned monopolies. And the undisputed crown jewel of this historic sale was Teléfonos de Mexico, or Telmex. To say Telmex was inefficient is a massive understatement. For decades, it was a national joke. Getting a new phone line was an odyssey that could take years unless you were willing to pay a hefty bribe to move up the list. The service was notoriously awful. The copper wire infrastructure was ancient and falling apart, and the company was a bloated symbol of state mismanagement. But it had one incredible, redeeming quality. It was a monopoly. It owned virtually every phone line in a country of over 80 million people. The potential for profit was astronomical, but so was the risk of failure. The government put a controlling stake in the company up for auction, and powerful international telecom giants from around the world swooped in, eager to claim the prize. Everyone assumed one of them would win. Carlos Slim, by comparison, looked like a long shot, an underdog. He was a master of retail, manufacturing, and finance, but he knew next to nothing about running a modern phone company. This is where Slim, the strategic dealmaker, truly shined. He was keenly aware of his weaknesses, so he went out and bought the expertise he needed. He brilliantly assembled a consortium of partners, bringing in the American firm Southwestern Bell and the state-owned France Telecom to provide the crucial technical and operational know-how. Slim's job was to bring the capital, the deep local political knowledge, and the sheer audacity to make the winning bid. His group won, acquiring control of Telmex for $1.76 billion. At the time, many analysts and competitors were stunned, convinced he'd grossly overpaid for a broken, dysfunctional company. They were spectacularly wrong. They didn't see the genius of the deal structure or the gold mine he had just secured. Slim's team got to work immediately, pouring billions into modernizing the decrepit network, ripping out old copper and laying down state-of-the-art fiber optic cables and digital systems. The infamous wait time for a new phone line dropped from years to mere days. But the real masterstroke, the move that would create a gusher of cash beyond anyone's imagination, was in the nascent mobile sector. In the early 90s, cell phones were expensive, bulky toys for the ultra-rich. Slim's mobile company, Telcel, completely flipped that model on its head. They created the Amigo Kit, a prepaid cell phone system. It was revolutionary. For the very first time in Mexican history, anyone with just a little cash could walk into a store and buy a phone with prepaid minutes, no contract, no credit check, no monthly bill. This one simple idea opened up the world of telecommunications to tens of millions of people who had never even had a landline, let alone a mobile phone. The revenue from those millions of tiny prepaid card transactions was staggering. Telcel's growth exploded, and its parent company Telmex, once a national joke, became one of the most profitable telecommunications companies in the world. Slim hadn't just bought a company. He had bought the central nervous system of the entire Mexican economy. Every single phone call, every fax, and soon every mobile payment and text message sent a tiny tribute flowing directly into his pockets. The cash flow was almost unbelievable. It was the ultimate prize, the engine that would fund the construction of an empire reaching far beyond the borders of Mexico. The takeover of Telmex wasn't the end of the story. It was the explosive beginning of the real empire. The incredible unending river of cash flowing from his telecom monopoly gave Carlos Slim a war chest that was completely unrivaled in Latin America. His primary vehicle for expansion was América Móvil, a new company spun off from Telmex to handle his rapidly growing mobile assets. It swept through Latin America like a conquering army, buying or building mobile carriers in Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, and nearly every other country in the region. The playbook was almost identical in every new market. Enter with force, build the best network as quickly as possible, and then crush the competition with the irresistible prepaid Amigo kit model. In a remarkably short period, América Móvil became the undisputed king of telecommunications in Latin America. But Slim's strategy was even more clever than just owning a collection of phone companies. He was building a perfectly closed-loop economic machine, a self-sustaining ecosystem where his businesses all fed and supported each other. When América Móvil needed to build thousands of new cell towers, who did they hire to do the work? Grupo Carso's construction company, which Slim owned. When customers went to pay their phone bills or buy a new handset, where did many of them go? To a Sanborns or a Sears Mexico department store, which he also owned. When his companies needed financing for further expansion, who provided the massive loans? His financial firm, Grupo Financiero Inbursa. It was a brilliantly complete and self-reinforcing system. Slim owned the company that dug the trench, the company that laid the cable, the company that provided the phone service, the company that sold the physical phone that used the service, and the bank that processed the payment for it all. Each individual company was profitable on its own, but woven together, they created a corporate machine that was virtually unbeatable, printing money at every stage. However, this incredible success story had a very public dark side. In Mexico, the dominance of Telmex and its mobile arm Telcel was so absolute that it drew widespread and persistent criticism. For years, competitors and consumer advocates accused them of behaving like a private monopoly, using their immense market power to choke out any potential competition and keep prices artificially high for Mexican consumers. The OECD, a global economic organization, published reports claiming that the lack of meaningful competition in Mexico's telecom sector was costing the nation's consumers and its overall economy billions of dollars. Slim and his companies have always pushed back hard against these accusations, arguing that their massive investments are what built Mexico's modern infrastructure from the ground up and that prices have consistently dropped over time. This is the great paradox of Carlos Slim. He is undeniably the man who connected Mexico, bringing phones and internet to millions for the first time, but he is also the man accused of holding its entire communications network hostage. His empire was built on a foundation of strategic genius, but it was cemented by a level of market dominance that many argue came at a steep cost to his own country. In 2010, the culmination of his life's work was made official. When Forbes magazine published its annual billionaires list, Carlos Slim Helú was number 1. He had officially surpassed Bill Gates, a position he would hold for 4 consecutive years. For many in Mexico and across the developing world, it was a moment of immense national pride, proof that greatness could come from anywhere. But it also put his immense power and the controversies surrounding it under an even brighter and more critical spotlight. His historic rise to the top wasn't about a single product or a flash of genius. It was the lifelong application of a few core, deeply held ideas. First was the unwavering discipline of a value investor. The little boy with the ledger was always there in the background, coolly calculating the true long-term value of an asset when others were blinded by panic and fear. Second was his profound long-term vision. Slim rarely, if ever, invests for a quick flip. He buys companies to hold, to integrate into his ecosystem, and to grow for decades. And third was his engineer's obsession with operational efficiency. He saw businesses not as brands or ideas, but as complex systems to be optimized, relentlessly cutting costs and maximizing cash flow. As his wealth ballooned to unimaginable heights, so too did questions about his ultimate legacy. In response, he became a major philanthropist, but his approach is notably different from that of his peers like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. Slim has publicly stated his skepticism of the Giving Pledge, the campaign that asks billionaires to give away the majority of their fortune. He argues forcefully that the best way to fight poverty isn't charity, but job creation. For Slim, building sustainable businesses that employ hundreds of thousands of people is the greatest possible social contribution. His foundations, the Carlos Slim Foundation and the Telmex Foundation, have invested billions, but they operate with the same business-like mindset, focusing on health, education, and culture as long-term investments. They've funded cutting-edge genomic research, provided over 800,000 university scholarships, and built the magnificent Sumaya Museum in Mexico City, named for his late wife, which offers free admission to everyone. He's not just giving away money, he's strategically investing in human capital. The succession plan for his colossal empire has been handled with the same methodical foresight. He has gradually and deliberately passed control of his companies to his three sons, Carlos, Marco Antonio, and Patrick, who now run the major pillars of the family business. Even his grandchildren are already sitting on the boards of smaller companies, ensuring the Slim dynasty is built to last for generations. Today, Carlos Slim is no longer the world's richest person, but he remains an overwhelmingly dominant force in Mexico and across Latin America. In more recent years, he has poured billions into the energy and oil sectors, positioning his conglomerate for the next generation of opportunities. His companies are still titans, his family is firmly in control, and his influence is undeniable. The story of Carlos Slim is a complex tapestry of immigrant ambition, financial genius, and fierce national controversy. He is a historical figure on the scale of a Rockefeller or a Carnegie, a man who saw a nation's immense potential when others saw only crisis. His legacy will be debated for decades to come. Was he a nation builder who modernized Mexico, or a ruthless monopolist who profited at its expense? The truth, as it often is likely somewhere in the complex space in between. The blueprints for building an empire are often hiding in plain sight, found in the simple lessons and bold decisions of those who came before. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Carlos Slim's strategy, subscribe to our channel for more stories about the world's most fascinating and influential entrepreneurs. And let us know in the comments, what part of Slim's strategy do you think was the most crucial to his incredible success? From a small dry goods store named the Star of the Orient to a global telecommunications empire that reshaped a continent, the story of the Slim family is a testament to one powerful, animating idea. Real, lasting wealth is built not by following the crowd, but by having the courage and conviction to stand against it. Carlos Slim's journey from a methodical boy with a ledger to the richest man in the world was powered by this relentless contrarian spirit. He mastered the art of seeing immense value where others saw only ruin, and he possessed the audacity to strike with overwhelming force when the moment was right. His story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest and most transformative fortunes are found in the very things that everyone else has decided to leave behind.